This is the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management topics to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at www.thepmpodcast.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com. Hello and welcome to episode number 88. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This is the Project Management Podcast for the 16th of February 2008. Nice to have you with us. In January of 2008, I went on my first cruise. And this cruise took my wife and I to the Mexican Riviera. Of course, I never leave home without the podcasting equipment, so it is no surprise that I took a few moments on the ship to record a couple of short episodes for you. And this here today is the first one, and I will be introducing you to a book titled Getting Things Done by David Allen. This book is all about productivity and how to get your to-do list under control. However, this is not meant to be a book review in the traditional sense. In this episode, I present to you my journey over the past 3 to 4 months and how I used and implemented the concepts from this book in order to get the hundreds and hundreds of tasks that I have on my to-do list under control. This episode is once again sponsored by Genius Inside, providers of collaborative project management software, and you can find them at geniusinside.com. But now, let's change location from our studio here in Silverado Canyon to the balcony of the Dawn Princess.
Welcome aboard the Dawn Princess. I'm sitting here on the balcony of our stateroom, while the Dawn Princess is heading from San Diego down to Cabo San Lucas at about 21 miles, 21 knots per hour, of course. The sun is shining, it's actually blinding me, and I'm having a fairly wonderful time here aboard the ship. Today, I would like to talk to you about a book that I have been reading over the past 3 months or so. And the book is called Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. It was written by David Allen and is copyrighted, I believe, in the year 2001. So it's not the newest book, but it contains quite a lot of information that I feel will help a lot of project managers out there. Now, you may have noticed that since 2005, when we started the Project Management Podcast, we haven't done any book reviews at all. The reason for this is quite simple. I don't look at myself as a book reviewer. And still, today, I would like to talk to you not exactly about the book, but more about what this book has done for me and how it can do the same thing for you as well. Let me start out with the year 2007 and how I actually came to read this book. A few major things happened in 2007 to me. First of all, my mother died in May of 2007. Then later on in the year, we had the forest fires that happened in our region, and I was evacuated for about 2 weeks. There was a lot of pressure that I had at work, and if you remember, I was also the president of the PMI Orange County chapter. And all of these things piling up on top of each other led to the fact that my control over my projects and over my tasks was actually slipping. I was beginning to miss deadlines for the first time in my life. Not because I didn't have enough time to work on these things, but simply because I forgot about the deadlines and I forgot about the items that I had to work on. And I just didn't have a system that would help me in those troubled times to ensure that everything that I needed to work on was actually getting worked on. So I started to look around, and in the end, I found this book here, Getting Things Done. One reason for this, where I found it, was the Controlling Chaos podcast. Dina Henry Scott likes the book. She recommended the book, and I heard it from a couple of other podcasters as well in the project management podcasting area. And I figured a system is as good as any, and I decided to try out the book and try out the system in there. Now, mind you, I'm not going to try and want to convert you to this. There are, in fact, podcasts out there that talk pretty much just about the getting things done methodology. And the one that I found and like very much is called 43 Folders, the number 4, the number 3 folders.com. It's both a podcast and a website. And David Allen himself, he also has information about the book and about the Getting Things Done methodology on davidcoe.com. He also has a free podcast that you can find in iTunes. Now, what I needed towards the end of 2007 was a system that I could trust, because I just simply couldn't trust my brain anymore. And this is really where Getting Things Done came in and helped me. Because the one thing that David Allen talks about in his book most of the time is the fact that you should not keep the things that you need to do in your brain. You should have some sort of a collection bucket. This could be a piece of paper, this could be a physical in-basket, this could be a task management tool in which you trust and into which you put all the things that you have to do. He calls these collection buckets. And let me go to page 56 in the book. I'm going to jump around here a little bit, because he talks a lot about how we plan our projects. And this is actually also at the heart of his whole system. He calls this the natural planning model. Now, for us project managers, this is nothing unusual, because when you go through project management training, this is pretty much what people tell you to do. Let me tell you what he calls the natural planning model. It's a 5-phase model. It starts out with number 1, defining the purpose and principles of your project. And pretty much that's what we always say. You have to define the goals of your project. Number 2, outcome visioning. This is very much requirements based. What should you have in the end? What are the features that your system should have? What is the end result that you're going to have on your project? Number 3 is brainstorming, coming up with the great ideas that will get you from here to there. Then number 4 is organizing, taking all those ideas that you've had so far, the purpose, the outcome visioning, the brainstorming, and putting them together in a roadmap that you can actually follow. And then finally, and this is, I think, where I was personally lacking in my own tasks, is the identifying of the next actions. And this is where I have really learned something new in the system here that David Allen is proposing, and that is identifying the next actions. Now let's come back to what was actually happening to me here. My problem was, and still is, that I am working in a matrix organization. I am a project manager, but at the same time, I also have responsibilities in a day job. And I have managerial position. I manage a small team. I have tasks that I have to take care of. And on top of that, I also have my project tasks. So there's a lot that is happening and a lot that can be forgotten. And yes, I did forget it. And because of all the stress that I was under personally, I kept forgetting things. I really didn't know what would I need to do next. And this is where the 5th step, thinking about the next actions, really helped me. On page 76 of his book, let me read a quote that I really liked and which I think helped me most, and it's this. In my experience, creating a list of what your real projects are and consistently managing your next action for each one will constitute of 90% of what is generally thought of as project planning. So, he also says that you cannot manage a project in this book. He says you can only manage tasks and actions, because that's in the end something that moves the project forward, and that is what you can manage. The project as a whole is unmanageable, but the individual tasks, they are manageable. Okay? The next page, page 77, has another statement. The habit of clarifying the next action on projects, no matter what the situation, is fundamental to staying in relaxed control. And believe me, that was what I needed. I was not in relaxed control. I was in anxiety, actually, because, well, I kept forgetting things. I kept forgetting to do things. My deadlines started to slip, and that really, really gets you very, very quickly into a lot of personal anxiety. So here is what I did. I started out thinking about, okay, he's talking about these buckets, about a system that you trust, that you use to collect all your action items. And I think I wasted about a week or two just thinking about, okay, what would I like my system to be like? Would I like it to be paper? Would I like it to be PDA, Outlook, an online task manager? And in the end, I said, you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what system you use to keep track of what it is that you're doing. You have to do it. I simply added David Allen's ideas to the system which I already used, and that was keeping track of my things to do on a piece of paper. That's how I started out. I continued to write down the tasks, the items that I had on my plate on a piece of paper, but I added always 3 to 5 next actions. So what are the next things that I need to do in order to move a particular task towards completion? I added more than just one next action. I added about 3 to 5 next actions to every single task that I had on my to-do list. And it was incredible. The clarity that I suddenly had, the burden seemed to be lifted off my shoulders. And it gave me structure. It gave me the ability to look into the future and plan assignments early. Now, you might think, well, as a project manager, you should have known this and you should have done it. Yes, under normal circumstances, that's what should have happened. But remember, because of all the personal stress that I was under, there was a lot going on in my life, and I didn't see clearly anymore, and I needed some system, some way of reminding me that this is how it's done. And it is often good to go back and look at the basics of how you manage your time, how you manage your projects. In the meantime, I have taken David Allen's system and I have pretty much expanded it to my whole life. Personal tasks go into the system, business tasks go into the system, tasks for the podcast go into the system, PMI related tasks, so everything goes in there. I also expanded on the idea of just using pen and paper. For one area, we had an audit that started shortly, and for this audit, there were dozens and dozens of completely unrelated tasks that needed to be taken care of, and many tasks I was responsible for, and others I had coordinating responsibilities. So I took these tasks, I threw them all into an Excel file. Column A, I had the task description. column B, I had a status, in progress, started, on hold, etc. In column C, I put in the next actions. Again, 3 to 5 next actions. And in column D, I added any comments that were necessary. And I used this Excel file over the past 6 weeks until pretty much the day that I went on this beautiful cruise here to manage these unrelated tasks and make sure that they would get done on the day that I would leave on my vacation. And I managed, and all the tasks got done. So I'm very happy to report that. I'm very satisfied with that. At the same time, I also thought, let's take a look at Outlook. Let's see what Outlook can do. And in Outlook, I started to collecting my tasks via the normal task management system that it has in there. And I now have a substantial list of my tasks in there. Okay, so now I have paper-based, I have some Excel-based, and I have some Outlook-based. Yes, I still haven't found the great way of managing this that works for me. But at the moment, I'm happy that I was able to find a system that I personally think is working for me. Now, what you have just heard is not the whole book that David Allen wrote. This is really only part 1 of the book. It consists of 3 parts. Part 1 is really the art of getting things done, and you've heard much of what he talks about in this short segment here. Part 2 is practicing stress-free productivity. I haven't gotten into that. I glanced at it so far. And part 3 is the power of key principles. In part 2, he talks mostly about, he wants to be your coach and help you to implement his methodology, his system in your day-to-day life. And then in part 3, he talks about the powers of what happens in your life if you use these habits, the collecting habit, or adding a next action decision on a task, or focusing on your final outcomes. So I'm still a long way from finishing this book, because as I'm reading it, I'm also using it. And I personally feel, like you've probably noticed, that while this may not be the holy grail for everybody, I have found a system that works for me, that is very, very easy to implement, and that has made my life over the past 2 months so much easier, and it made it manageable to run several projects as well as dozens of unrelated tasks in preparation for an audit and getting everything properly done. Okay, there are still only 24 hours in a day, but at least I knew exactly what I had to do, when I had to do it, in order to move things forward and getting my tasks done. Now, if you're, like myself, a project manager who manages small projects, and you need to focus on delivering tasks and making sure that your tasks get done, then I can recommend this system very much. Write down the tasks that you have. Write the next actions, 3 to 5 next actions that you can see into the future, and then manage your projects towards those next actions. All right, that was it for today here from the Dawn Princess in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And once again, the book is called Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity, and it was written by David Allen. And of course, you can find a link to this book on the website.
And that was and still is my journey with getting things done. I'm of course still learning and refining the process, but the good news is I still feel very much in control of all the dozens and dozens and dozens of items that I have on my to-do list. If you are interested in the book, then please stop by at thepmpodcast.com, where you can find a link to buy the book from Amazon, both in today's episode, which is episode number 88, and also in the books section. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at thepmpodcast.com, and if you're a project manager who wants to become PMP certified, you can visit pmprepcast.com. In our sister podcast, we teach you concepts, tools, and techniques that you need to know in order to pass the PMP exam. Please send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com, and when you write, yes, please tell me where in the world you are writing from, because it's always great to see where the listeners are at. And finally, we have this. If project scope is allowed to change freely, then the rate of change will exceed the rate of progress. Until next time.